Hello, hello. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited to spend some time talking about graduate student funding. I know it's a common topic and lots of questions around this topic. So we're really excited to have some wonderful campus partners joining us today to hopefully get as many of your questions answered as possible. But before we jump into the content of today's presentation, we just want to say such a warm welcome to UC San Diego. These pre-arrival webinars are hosted in partnership by our office, the International Services and Engagement Office, as well as the Division for Graduate Education and Postdoctoral Affairs, often referred to as GEPA. And then we do our best to work really collaboratively with our folks across campus. We know that UC San Diego is a really large university, and so there's a lot of different departments that you might interact with during your time here. And our goal is to be as collaborative as possible. So even if we don't have the right answer for you, we want to connect you with the folks who do. My name is Grace Fuller. Excuse me. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve as the Assistant Director of International Experience and Engagement at ISEO, or the International Services and Engagement Office. And I'll hand it over to my colleagues to introduce themselves. So I'll pass it to Marie.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Marie Mon La Paz Rivera, and I'm the Assistant Director for Student Services at the International Services Engagement Office. And I'll pass it along to my colleague, Shauna.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shauna Slabiota. I use pronouns she and hers, and I'm here from the Division of Graduate Education and Postdoctoral Affairs. I'll pass it off to Courtney.
Hi, good morning. My name is Courtney Aguila. I also use she, her pronouns. I'm the Associate Director for the Graduate Student Financial Support Unit in GEPA. And over to Jessica.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Purefoy. I am the Fellowship Administrator with the Division of Graduate Education and Postdoctoral Fellows, otherwise known as GEPA. And I'll pass it off to Christine.
Good morning. I'm Christina Key. I am a loan admin analyst at Student Financial Solutions, and I will pass it off to Alyssa.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alyssa Nicole Pinaranda. I am also part of the Student Financial Solutions Office, and my role is as a student account advisor.
Wonderful. So I just want to thank all of our presenters for being here today. But a little bit of housekeeping before we jump in. So one, you are in listen only mode, which means you can hear us, but unfortunately we can't hear you. So the main way we'll interact together today is through that Q&A feature on your Zoom menu bar. And we are recording, so you'll be able to view this webinar recording as well as all other previous webinar recordings at inewstudentwebinars.ucsd.edu. This is also the place that you'll be able to sign up for any future and upcoming webinars. So I see that we just got a question in the chat about previous webinar recordings. Go ahead and head there, and that's a great resource. We do ask, our team needs usually a week to 2 weeks to post the webinar to the website from the time of hosting the webinar. So if you don't see anything from, let's say, earlier this week, that might be why, but we hope to get that up for you soon. And then this is a little snapshot. If you haven't joined us for a Zoom webinar before, this is what the Q&A feature might look like. It should have a pop-up window where you can go ahead and submit your questions. We will have a dedicated time at the end of today's session for open question and answer. But if you're anything like me, sometimes you have a burning question that you want to submit right away because you're afraid you're going to forget it. So you can go ahead and submit that question. We'll be answering some of those throughout today's session, but we'll have a dedicated time at the end. Okay, a little bit about our office, if this is the first webinar you're joining us from, rather. Okay, so our office, International Services and Engagement Office, or ISEO, assists with a lot of different parts of your international student experience here at UC San Diego. So that covers everything from pre-arrival and orientation, so offering webinars like the one you're joining us for today, to really helping maintain your immigration status and your F1 or J1 visa status while you're at UC San Diego. We do that through a number of different advising services, but we also host different programs and events to really cultivate a globally engaged community here. We are fortunate to have such a robust international community at UC San Diego. We have over 10,000 international students, so that's over 8,000 currently enrolled and then 2,000 working after graduation. We also have over 2,000 international faculty and scholars, so folks who are working here at UC San Diego. And they're joined by over 1,000 international families comprised of both spouses and partners, as well as children. And like I said before, we really try to work with our entire campus to make sure that we're supporting our international community and really promoting that cross-cultural engagement. So we're fortunate to be a leading institution for hosting our international faculty and scholars and students. And we have a service population of just under 14,000. So again, a really robust community that you'll be joining here. And I always like to talk a little bit about our students specifically. So you can see here we have somewhat of like around 4,000 for both our undergrad and our graduate students. You can see some of our most common departments or fields of study, as well as our most common places of origin that our students are joining us from. And while we definitely kind of have our top 10, we also have over 100 countries represented. So it's a really great opportunity to meet people from all over the world during your time here. So on behalf of ISCO, we just want to offer you such a warm welcome. We know that the journey to get here is not often an easy one. There's a lot of steps in the process, and you have to start planning months and months before you physically arrive. But we are so excited for you to join our Triton community. We know that you enrich our community, and we look forward to actually meeting you personally and physically in the fall when you arrive. And then finally, I know that today's session will focus on graduate student funding. If you have any questions about like your immigration status, so requesting your Form I-20 or DS 2019, applying for your visa, please know that the website inewstudent.ucsd.edu is meant specifically for you. So this is meant to be a checklist. You can kind of go down one by one and make sure you're completing all those steps. So while we definitely think we want you to focus, I know that sometimes folks join us and have other questions about their visa status or things like that, and know that this is a resource available for you. And with that, I'll hand it over to my colleague Shauna to talk about some reminders for your graduate admissions.
Thank you so much, Grace. So I do want to say a couple of things regarding at your graduate admission. So this here is a link to your application portal. You are probably familiar with it by now. That's where you applied for your program. That's where you saw your admitted status. I will show a screenshot of the portal in a moment to just point out a couple of items that you do need to take care of as incoming graduate students. One of these items is the Statement of Legal Residence form, and you do want to check the portal to see if it's listed as a to-do item for you. It's not required for all programs. So you want to check to see if that's something that you need to take care of, and then you're going to want to take care of that form when you can. I also want to point out most students are provisionally admitted at this time. You do not have to wait for your admission to be finalized to start working on your immigration documents. So please do not wait. In order to finalize your admission, you need to submit some kind of documentation, usually a transcript, possibly test scores. And I will show you in just a moment where you can find the list of those pending documents and how you can submit those in your portal. If you have questions about any admissions questions, please email gradadmissions@ucsd.edu and our team will take care of that. So this is this is an example of what the portal will look like. We're not going to go along each of the 5 tabs. I'm just going to focus on the first 2. The home screen is what you see right now on the left-hand side of your screen. And what I want you to take note of is there's a series of 4 links. What to do immediately before you arrive on campus, when you arrive on campus, and also a section specifically for international students. And so this is going to list these different items that you need to take care of as an incoming student. So please take a look at those links and follow all of those instructions. At the very bottom, you can see of the Home tab, you can see where there are forms that you may need to complete. So if there's a form listed and there's a red X, then you haven't taken care of that yet. After it's submitted, that's when you'll see the green arrow. So in this example, this person has already submitted their decision reply form and their statement of legal residence. And then on the right-hand side of the screen is the Your Checklist items. You can see in this example that the applicant needs to submit a final transcript from the University of Pittsburgh. So whatever documents you have, that's where it's going to show at the top. And then the bottom half is going to have those instructions for how to submit your documents. And for any degrees earned outside of the United States, it does require an evaluation. The two companies we work with are WES and TEC. You only need to pick one. You don't have to work with both. And that's how you're going to complete that requirement. And I do want to just say that right now, our admissions team is prioritizing processing folks' applications. So if you have final documentation that you need to submit, you can go ahead and get started on that. But just know that the team won't start processing those documents to finalize admission until June. So just keep that in mind. And now we're going to start going more specifically into the topic of graduate student financial support. And I just want to stress that this is an introduction. It is not comprehensive. We won't be able to get into every scenario today, but we will try to cover the information that we think is important for you all. You've all been through an undergraduate program, but the way the funding works in graduate school is different. And for those of you on this call, some folks may have already studied in the US or you may not have, and so there's differences there as well. So we're going to try to cover kind of some of these pieces today. And this is just a little bit about the home department. So when we talk about an academic home department, we're talking about the department or the program from which you are earning your degree. So some of these examples, it could be the Scripps Institute of Oceanography, it could be the Department of Computer Science, it could be the Rady School of Management. These are the examples of places that we would call your academic home department or your home department or your home program. And the department plays a very important role. They will determine if you are eligible for support. They give approval for funding and employment. They submit requests on behalf of students. And also the staff in the program are very important, and they should be able to answer most of your questions regarding support. So this is a really important distinction when we talk about the home department and we talk about how the department works with GEPA, who is in kind of all of the grad programs. And I think now we'll talk more about fellowships.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks, Shauna. So there are two kind of fellowships that we're going to talk about today. There's intramural and there's extramural. And intramural are the funding and types of fellowships that we have within UCSD. And I have a list of those kinds of types of fellowships that we can talk about in a little bit. And then there's extramural, which is outside funding, funding that doesn't come from inside UCSD. And there's just so many of those out there. There's a lot of opportunities for you to apply for them. You might have to do some digging to find them. Many intramural fellowships don't have citizenship requirements, and so it's a good idea to talk to your graduate coordinator to see what they know of, and then definitely ask them about any fellowships that GEPA will be providing. And then your graduate coordinator in your home department would have information for you about fellowships that are discipline specific. So if it's STEM, if it's humanities, whatever it may be, they might have the more specific kind of fellowships for you. Awesome. So here's some keywords for when you're starting your search. Are you going to be looking for something that's going to be covering your tuition and fees? Do you just want a stipend? And then you also need to figure out when you want this fellowship. Is this going to be when you're doing your dissertation, so towards the end of your program? Is it once you've already advanced to candidacy? You can kind of figure out when you want your funding and what kind of funding you want to look for. And then sometimes you can look for the type of award. Sometimes just general funding, sometimes specifically for research, for travel, for training. So that's something to think about before you start looking. So a friendly tip is to read the whole thing. If you are missing documents, that sometimes means you automatically won't be considered. So if you're going to be missing a document, and you believe that you should be able to produce it at some point, you should definitely include information for why it's not included and let them know when it will be included. Yeah, there's a reason why they have requirements for each of these documents. So you might not be able to be scored accurately if you don't include all those documents. So make sure that you aren't missing any nomination materials or required documents for the reviewers to look at. And then it's really important to look at what the requirements are. Is there a citizenship status? Is there a residency status? Um, Perhaps an institution or a language. So there are certain requirements that you should look out for before applying. And then another really important part of this is how many people are going to be involved in your application. In almost all applications, they're going to require a letter from maybe a faculty member or your faculty mentor or the department chair. It really varies, but in a lot of cases, you will need some kind of letter of support. So that is something to think about before you start applying. And who needs to process it? Does your department need to sign off on it? Do you need to get department approval? And then there's a link here for the table of contents and like a nomination packet example, and I think it's very helpful. So take a look at that. So we have a lot of fellowships out there and a lot of funding opportunities. This is a list of some of our fellowships that are not specific and are only for citizens. So this is for opportunities for you guys to take a look at. Many of these are fellowships that are put on by GEPA. So your department may have some more knowledge about this. For example, we have like the Schmidt Science Fellows. That's an extramural fellowship, but we send out a call for that to your department. So you can talk with your department about if they think you would be a good nominee for it. So yeah, these are examples of some of our fellowship opportunities. And then these resources are really important to take a look at. First, we have GEPA's website. That's just information for you on like salary and fee remission, fellowships, fee payments, and then job opportunities. And then we have Grad Student Life. We have our Fellowship Collab, which has a link to a lot of our fellowships, including requirements, deadlines, when they're opening, when they're closing, nomination materials that are required. Then our GEPA Fellowship website, which is useful because it has links to other programs so you can search for fellowships. So we have like Grapes with UCLA, for example, is one of them. So definitely, if you're curious about fellowship funding, take a look at that website. And then Handshake, where you can find job opportunities and internship opportunities. And I believe we're passing it off to Courtney.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. So the first topic I want to share more information about is what happens with a fellowship after you're awarded. So we call it post-award fellowships. And after your award has been made, you have your award letter. Now it moves to the GEPA Financial Support Unit and our fellowship disbursements team. So once you've had that fellowship awarded, we audit the stipend and fee payments requested for each graduate fellow. And then we also process those stipend and fee payments that you've been awarded. Stipend payments are processed monthly and in arrears. So that means September stipends are received around the first of the next month, which would be October. The department managing the fellowship sets up the stipend and the fee payments, and they are going to serve as the point of contact for fellowship advising. So, does my fellowship allow travel? Does my fellowship allow me to reallocate some of the funds? That is going to be all managed at the department level. You want to check your fellowship award letter to find out which office to reach out to because some of the awards that you receive are managed by the Financial Support Unit. So the NSF GRFP, the Achievement Rewards for College Scientists, we call it ARCS, the San Diego Fellowship Match, those are all handled by GEPA Financial Support Unit. But things like your training grants, T32s, or the HHMI, which is the Howard Hughes Medical Institute Gilliam Fellowship, that's handled at the department. And then some of the awards are managed by both in coordination together. So awards like the Tribal Membership Initiative and the UCHBCU. So just make sure you're checking your award letter to see who can best help you with your questions. Once you're ready to receive stipend payments, you're going to want to pay close attention on notices that you get from the Glacier Department. Glacier paperwork is required for all international students receiving that first fellowship stipend payment. That paperwork helps determine residency for tax purposes, tax withholding rates, um, income tax treaty eligibility, and our team and the Glacier team, they work closely together to initiate that paperwork process and to make sure that you stay in contact with the team appropriately. So we put here on this slide the two email addresses that you may be contacted from from the Glacier team, and it's that support at online-tax.net. And the second email is glacier-disp, as in disbursement, at ucsd.edu. It's a good idea to add those to your email address books so that none of it goes to spam because it's really important. I'll also say what we have here in red. If your status changes to permanent resident during the academic year, please contact the Glacier team to update that Glacier record. Oh, a couple of reminders. So the department managing your fellowship is going to set up your fee payments. Fee payments are not going to apply to your student account though until you enroll for the quarter. So once you enroll, your account is charged fees and then we're able to pay the fees. So if you don't enroll, you can't be charged and we can't make a payment for you. Fees pay into your student account on the next Monday, Wednesday, Friday disbursement after your enrollment date. And you are able to check the pending awards box on Triton Pay to view any payments that have been scheduled for you, but that haven't dispersed yet. And your fee payments will disperse right around 10 days prior to the start of the quarter. So you may know that you have a fee payment coming, um, but you don't really want to start checking on the status of that payment until right around 10 days. In 26-27, in this academic year, there is a UCGPC fee. It's a non-mandatory quarterly fee. Your department is not required to cover this fee. And if you choose to, you can opt out of this fee. And we have a link on this slide for you to kind of do a little bit more research on the fee. But just know that if your department has said to you, we're going to make a fee payment for you, this UCGPC fee, which is a really small fee, is not going to be covered. So we want to highlight how to receive your fellowship stipend and fee payments on time. You want to make sure you're enrolling by the registration fee payment deadline. You want to make sure you're familiar with your stipend schedule. And then you want to make sure that all of your personal information is updated, direct deposit information, addresses, any changes in your residency, make sure that's updated all the time. And the important link here on this slide is that last one, that FSPT stipends doc info for graduate students. This reference sheet gives you information on how to enroll in the direct deposits in more than one system, how they interact with each other, what it means for you. So this is a good one to bookmark. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is employment. So different from a fellowship or a scholarship that you may receive, employment is just that. It is services rendered to the university in exchange for payment. And so on our campus, graduate students have two kind of broad categories of academic employment, research and instructional support. And I want to just highlight that these are academic employment types. There is other employment on campus that you may be eligible for. You could go work at the bookstore, housing and dining, things like that. But for this presentation, we're going to be talking about the academic employment types. So again, research and then instructional support. Graduate student researchers, what we call GSRs, they perform research under the direction of a faculty member or what we call a principal investigator. The research might be in their home department or in another home department. It may be in a lab, it may be in the field. Students can also be appointed in one of the following instructional titles: associate instructor, teaching assistant, reader, or tutor. And in those roles, either a GSR or the instructional titles, students can be appointed up to 50% during the academic months and potentially up to 100% during the summer with approval from the academic home department. And to be really specific, summer begins the day after spring quarter ends, and it ends the day before fall quarter begins. So it's a really specific time period between spring and fall quarters. So students should always check with their home department first for employment opportunities for the same reason that the home departments are a great resource for fellowships. They oftentimes have an inside scoop on positions that might be available, connections with other departments, or have more narrow sort of ideas about, not narrow ideas, but have more specific jobs that may be relevant for your course of study. So you want to make sure you're reviewing employment eligibility requirements from ISEO and from GEPA. For GEPA, the main eligibility requirements are being registered full-time, that's 12 units, in graduate level coursework, to be within your support time limits, and to maintain a 3.0 GPA in your graduate level coursework. Depending on the type of financial support you're awarded, you might receive a fee remission or a fee payment as part of your support package. And there's a distinction here between a regular fee payment and a fee remission. Remissions are benefits of employment in one of those graduate academic titles. That's a GSR or one of those instructional titles. And those payment amounts are predetermined and set by the contracts that govern those two types of work. So a little bit more about fee remission next. Um, let's start with the GSR tuition and fee remission. Any GSR who's employed at least 25% for a full quarter are eligible for this fee remission. It covers what you see here. I won't read them all, but it excludes professional degree fees and program fees. And so we call it GSRTF, so that may be an acronym that you hear frequently. And that entry is coordinated with the student's academic home department or the program that hires you. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the ASE fee remission. So these are remissions that are a benefit of instructional work. So again, as an associate instructor, a TA, a reader, tutor, almost the same criteria. Students need to be appointed at 25% for an entire quarter, and they're eligible for the fees you see here. Um, this remission excludes specifically the non-resident supplemental tuition and along with the professional and program fees. And you can see a breakdown of what's included at that link. Students also have responsibilities to become eligible and maintain eligibility for the financial support. So students need to enroll full-time by the published deadlines, obtain that pre-approval from their home department, maintain eligibility, good academic standing, pay fees by the published deadlines, and make sure that you sign up for direct deposit. And so we have links for ways to pay your bills, the registration enrollment calendar so you can add those to your planners and make sure that you know when your deadlines are for the academic year. There are times when a hold may be placed on a student account for an outstanding debt. These debts include amounts owed for tuition and fees, like that pesky little fee that may not be covered by your department. Enrollment, well, not enrollment and registration any longer. Housing fees, library fines, bookstore charges. It is important that you clear all of those outstanding debts so that your account is restored to good standing. Holds placed as a result of outstanding debt will prevent a student from registering for future quarters. And if you can't register, you can't get charged and we can't make payments to your student account. Okay, just a few general reminders. So it's the student's responsibility to ensure that your departments are posting fee payments prior to the billing due dates. You should regularly monitor your student account, even if you know that you are fully funded, to ensure that there are no unpaid miscellaneous fees close to those billing due dates. Questions about this particular item can be directed to Student Financial Solutions, and we have a link here for you. And I want to just end with reminders about Glacier. So your stipend payment may be delayed if your Glacier tax record is incomplete. And so to avoid delays, you want to complete your Glacier record as soon as possible and follow all the instructions sent to your email. The Glacier Online Non-Resident Alien Tax Compliance System is the tax compliance system used by UCSD to collect this required tax information for international students. It's required not only for stipend payments, but also for any employment payments that you get. It's required for other types of university financial support, and it is mandatory before payment can be issued. So again, to prevent delays, you want to make sure you are carefully reading all emails from support at online-tax.net and glacier-disp at ucsd.edu. Make sure you're enrolling in direct deposit in Triton Link and in UC Path, and make sure that you're updating both systems immediately if your address changes, if your social security or tax ID number changes, or if you have changes to your direct deposit account. And if you have questions, connect with your coordinator in your graduate home department. You can also visit services and support, submit a ticket to our team, and we're happy to help you find the resources that you need to succeed as you work through your fellowships and your employment. We're here for you. So next, I'm going to hand it back to our ISEO colleague, Grace.
Thanks so much, Courtney. All right, I am going to talk about a few engagement opportunities with our office, and then we'll have some dedicated time at the end for open question and answer. So, two guides that I really like to highlight during this season. One is our welcome guide. So, our welcome guide really focuses on putting a lot of this information into a little bit more of a digestible format. We know that people intake information in a lot of different ways, and sometimes reading through the website and attending on these webinars is great, it's helpful, and it can be a little overwhelming. So hopefully the welcome guide kind of puts that into a little bit more of like an aesthetic, manageable chunk. And you can kind of have those broken down into processes of what to do now as you prepare for arrival and then upon arrival. And so you can access those guides via the link on the screen. And my colleague will be putting those in the chat shortly. Thank you. The other guide I like to highlight is our Surf Check guide. Our Surf Check guide is slightly different because this guide was created for students by students. So this covers the most frequently asked questions by our incoming international students. Questions like, how do I arrange transportation from the airport to campus? How do I set up a phone account? How do I set up a bank account? And more. So this is really kind of like a student-friendly, student-focused guide. And we hope that it's helpful for you. Another really helpful resource is our Grad Pals program. So this is a peer mentorship program where incoming international graduate students can sign up to be paired with a current graduate student at UC San Diego. When you're filling out the form, you can kind of indicate some of your preferences if you would really prefer to be matched with someone in your same department or maybe from your same home country, so on and so forth. But many students share that this was one of the most helpful resources in transitioning to their community at UC San Diego, having a peer where they can kind of ask all of those questions too in a little bit of a lower stakes informal format. If you're curious about some of our signature programs, I encourage you to head to iprograms.ucsd.edu. These are programs that we run once a month. Usually, every week of the month is a different program. And these are just opportunities for our international community to connect with one another, as well as connect with others across campus. And so, as you can see here, we have lots of different signature programs. So usually the first week of the month is Mommy, Daddy, and Me. The second week is Global Coffee Hour. The third week is Craft Event. The fourth week is Game Night. And then we have a smattering of Triton Trekker trips and English in Action events and International Student Advisory Council sprinkled in through there. So if you're curious learning about any more of these, you can go to iprograms.ucsd.edu. And then as a complement to our iPrograms, that's where you can kind of learn about our signature programs. Our iEvents calendar is our live calendar. So this is a calendar that's populated with events not only from our office, but also from offices across campus, as well as a lot of student orgs. So I know many students will kind of bookmark this page, and when they're curious about like, hey, what's happening this week or this weekend, they'll go to iEvents to learn more. And then finally, if you're curious about getting a snapshot into what student life at UC San Diego might look like through the lens of an international student, our Instagram does a great job of really focusing on that. So I know many students will kind of like check it out to be like, okay, when they start to envision themselves in a new place, starting a new chapter of their life. I think our Instagram is a great way to do so. And then here are some final reminders before we go into our question and answer. So some things you can start to do now. So we have request your visa documents. For those who are still waiting on that invitation, thank you for your patience. Our team is working as quickly as possible. We are affected by the delays with the new Triton student system. And so if you're waiting, thank you for collecting those documents to prepare for that submission and know that we are working hard to get that email to you. Another thing you can start to look into now is applying for on-campus housing. Housing can be competitive in San Diego, and so this is something that you probably want to look into sooner rather than later. We were also joined by our colleagues previously to talk about student health, immunization, and insurance requirements. Just a friendly reminder that those immunization requirements are due July 14th specifically. And then in September is where lots of exciting things happen. So that's where we have move in and check in and orientation and all the things. And so if you want a sneak peek of what that might look like, you can head to iorientation.ucsd.edu. Okay, so we have a few upcoming webinars. So next week, we hope you'll join us for English language requirements for instructional assistants. So if you are interested in serving as, let's say, a TA or a teaching assistant during your time here, there are certain English language requirements that you may be required to meet before being eligible for those types of positions. So we'll go into more detail about that process and those requirements next Tuesday. Then next Thursday, we'll have a pre-arrival webinar focusing on student life and getting involved on campus. And this is a really cool webinar because it features current international graduate students and kind of how they have balanced their studies with their research, with kind of life outside of academics and lab. So this is a great time to hear from other students. In April, we have other webinars of finances and student accounts, campus safety, getting set up in the US. And if you are a student who is maybe currently in the US, let's say on an F1 or a J1, and you want to, or sorry, on an F1 visa, and you want to transfer your CVIS record to UC San Diego from your undergraduate institution, then we highly recommend you join us for our CVIS transfer webinar. So as a reminder, all webinar recordings will be posted at inewstudentwebinars.ucsd.edu under fall 2026. And this is also where you can sign up for upcoming webinars. So hopefully that's a one-stop shop for you. Okay, and with that, we can start to transition to our open question and answer. So this is, I know a lot of good questions have already come through the chat, and I see that we still have a few more. And so first, I'm going to open it up to my colleagues on the call. Have there been any questions that have come through the chat that you'd like to speak to that you think might benefit a large group of a large group of students today?
Grace, I do see a few questions about connecting with a graduate coordinator or with the department staff. And so I think we should address that. Um, I see Courtney just hopped on. Did you want to address that or do you want me to?
Well, I think a couple of items come to mind. If you want to find, um, each department's set up a little differently. And so some departments will have the name of the graduate funding coordinator, the graduate advisor on the website, usually under the contact information. Some departments, though, who are pretty large, will have like a role account, like grad funding or grad PhD support or something like that. And so I think my recommendation is to go to the website for the department that you're going to be entering, the department where you're going to be getting your degree from, so your academic home department, and just look in the contact information and see what email they prefer.
Mhm.
You may also receive information on your admissions kind of welcome letter, your funding commitment letter. It may have information there, but each department's set up a little different, so it may take a little bit of looking through, like I said, the website or any kind of admissions letters that you have to find out who the contacts are. And if you really can't find it, if you're just stumped, you can absolutely submit a ticket to GEPA through service and support, and we can absolutely help you find your person.
I completely agree, Courtney. I was going to say, I feel like there are quite a few departments that when you visit their website will have a section that says admissions or something about admissions or admitted students. And there's oftentimes a lot of great info there and also probably some type of contact. So when in doubt, I feel like it's always a good starting place.
I just also wanted to quickly add that usually the admission letter will say who you could contact with questions that are directly related.
Definitely.
Wonderful. This is why it's so helpful to have our colleagues on the call because they are the people can direct you to the right place. So thank you, thank you. I see another question that's come through. So this question reads, as an international student who is just moving to the US, is the CEVIS transfer applicable to us as well? This is a great question. So the CEVIS transfer process is applicable to students who already have a CEVIS record number. So if you are currently in the US, that means you on an F1 visa, you have a CEVIS record number. So this is usually applicable to students who might be, for our graduate students, usually if you've done like your undergrad in the US on an F1 and you want to transfer your CEVIS record number to UC San Diego for your graduate program, then the CEVIS transfer process applies to you. But if you are moving to the US for the first time, you have not been in the US on an F1 visa, then you likely do not have a CVIS record number to transfer. Instead, you need to request a CVIS record number, and you do that through applying for the form I-20, and then applying for the F1 visa. So if you are just moving to the US for the first time, you've never been in the US on an F1, then likely the CVIS transfer does not apply to you. It most likely only applies to students who are here for their undergraduate degree and would like to transfer their CVIS record to UC San Diego for their graduate program. I see my colleagues are diligently answering lots of different questions. We'll still allow for a few more minutes because I know many of you are still typing. But while we're kind of typing on some more case-specific questions, um, we can go ahead and, oh, I see another question that's come through. So, does the CVIS transfer? I see another question that's come through asking about the CVIS transfer process as well. And what I am actually going to do, excuse me, is I'm going to put something in the chat that really talks in detail about the process to transfer your CVIS record and if you might be eligible for a CVIS transfer essentially. Because there are a few things to take note of. One is you need to make sure that you're what's called in a 5-month window. So one, your CVIS record needs to be active. And then two, between the last day of your program of your current institution and the program start date of your new institution, likely UC San Diego, that transfer needs to be within 5 months or 152 days. So there's a few specifics that go into the CVIS transfer process. So I am going to say, I'll put this link in the chat, and then I highly recommend you join us for our webinar on the CVIS transfer because that's when we will go into great detail about this process and a lot more information. So please go ahead and register and join us. But the link I put in the chat should give you a lot of good preliminary information.
And Grace, I just wanted to say, many of our graduate students do work or have some type of funding support at some point during their graduate experience. For today's webinar, we've talked a lot about the kind of like logistics, maybe for lack of a better word, but we have the current student panel session that will be coming up later in this series, and that will actually be your opportunity to talk to current graduate students, and you can maybe just ask them, what is it like balancing, for example, how do you balance like your studies and your employment? Like, what does that look like? What does a typical week look like for you? And you can actually get that perspective directly from the students. So just wanted to kind of promote that to say that uh, for today, we're talking about some pieces of this process, but I also think it's really helpful to hear from students that are at UC San Diego kind of what that looks like. And so if you're able to join at that session, I think that will give you a different perspective. Um, that will hopefully complement what we are sharing today. Also, when thinking about upcoming webinars, we also have a session where we will discuss in more detail the English language requirement piece for instructional assistants or for teaching assistants. So also you may want to take note of the date for that session as well. Anyone else on the panel um, see any questions they'd like to address or common questions maybe that you hear from people who are just starting their grad programs? Right. Well, hearing none, um, Grace, what do you think about finishing up our Q&A?
Yeah, so sorry, I was just answering another question in the Q&A. Something I do want to note is that our CVIS transfer process is geared primarily towards F1s. So students who are on an F1 visa who are transferring their I-20. If you are on a J1 visa and you have some more specific questions about your scenario and your case, I highly encourage you to fill out our ISEO contact form. This will be the best place for you to kind of be able to get a little bit more questions answered about um, your specific scenario. So please, I'm going to put the ICO contact form in the chat. Oh, thank you, Marie. She's on it. I love it. But yes, a slightly different process for our students who are interested in transferring their J1. It has to occur before the DS 2019 requires and a few other things. So the best way to get that question answered is likely by submitting your inquiry via our contact form. So thank you for your attention. Yes, we also hope the Triton system delays get wrapped up. I think our whole university has been impacted by the new Triton student system rollout. So we are all in this together on that front and trying to navigate some of the changes that are happening. But we know that yeah, Thankfully, if you are here joining us and asking for you're joining us for the webinars, asking us for this information, that usually means that you are here early and you're starting the process early, which is only in your benefit and in your favor. So thank you for your patience because I just want you all to know that our team knows how important these documents are. We know that visa appointments can be limited specifically in certain countries, and it's rather impacted. So we are very mindful of how important these documents are, and our team is working as diligently as possible to get these to you, so to process these requests, even if that means manually creating these records where we have to one by one. So just know that we're taking this seriously and we thank you for your patience as we work together to welcome you to the Triton community. So with that, if there aren't any other final reminders from our presenters and no other questions, then we will go ahead and wrap up today's webinar. We do, like I said, have that link in the chat to register for upcoming webinars that Shauna mentioned, as well as view previous webinar recordings. Again, usually those get posted between 1 and 2 weeks from the time of airing. But thank you and have a great rest of your day, afternoon, evening, depending on where in the world you might be joining us from. Take care.